So AAL MICS, which stands for AI Accelerator Lab, presents Major Innovative Constructive Showcase. It's a recurring interactive showcase that spotlights breakthrough work from founders and innovators in AI and adjacent creative fields. So each session is designed to foster exposure, meaningful connections, and knowledge sharing, driving both individual growth and collective advancement in the APAC innovation ecosystem. So today we're very honored, and it's my pleasure to introduce our guest, Simon Hirtz. We're very lucky to have him today. So a quick introduction of Simon, and of course, Simon, thank you so much for coming, and please introduce yourself even more after I introduce you, because I'm sure this is just in a nutshell of who you are. So Simon is a Vienna-based architect, designer, and researcher working at the intersection of spatial design and artificial intelligence. Trained in Vienna, Zurich, and LA, he gained international experience before focusing on how AI can shape creative processes. Since 2021, he has been teaching at the new design university, St. Pölten and TU, where he leads courses on AI-based design strategies. So he is the co-founder of Unlocked Creatives and founder of AI Agency, through which he develops tailored AI models, visual strategies, and workflows, while also providing consulting and project support. His academic path includes a Master of Architecture with distinction from the University of Applied Arts Vienna under Greg Lin, studies at SciArc LA, and exchanges at Zurich. Professional experience at firms like Coop Himmelblau further enriches his practice. So, at the core of his work is the interplay between technical precision and cultural depth, with a focus on making AI not just possible, but relevant, responsible, and creative life. Thank you so much for being here, Simon.
Thanks a lot for the introduction. It's very nice to be here. Thank you.
Yes, so thank you so much. We're going to begin our 10 minutes of chit chat. We see a good crowd here, so we're ready to go into it. So, how are you? Where are you right now, Simon?
I'm in Vienna at the moment. It's a bit cloudy. It's a little colder than usual at the moment in the summer, but me myself, I'm good. Thank you for the question. I hope so. You're good too. I heard that you're going to be in Tokyo as well at some point next week. Are you already there in Japan or no?
No, I'm not there yet. I will be in Kobe and Osaka next week, but then we'll be in Tokyo for a conference in October. Yes, so I know you're very much looking forward to your Asia trip. So actually, yes, you're in Vienna. Tell us a bit more about the scene there in terms of AI and how well it's being perceived, or maybe not well. I don't know. Maybe you can tell us how is it being perceived right now and how is it being implemented? Unlock Studio, Unlock Creatives is a very avant-garde. I know it's a very avant-garde, like pushing the limit kind of agency. So can you tell us about your market over there? What is everyone doing in Vienna and Austria?
Thing like to have a little overview, I guess I only can tell about what's going on like in the image scene or like in the generative AI, which is kind of image based or video based, like how to say like agency work. AI is coming, of course, as well, big time to Austria, but people at the moment, which is also kind of in an economical crisis a little bit, like what Europe is going through currently. I think people are kind of hesitating a little bit about the possibilities of AI. I'm not saying they're going to neglect it completely, but it takes a little slower pulse, so to say. It takes a little longer than
Mm,
probably we are going to force it at the moment. Yeah, I was kind of diving into this 3 years ago and trying to push the boundaries, as you said, in various directions, in various scales. But that means that like my journey or like my exercise, what I'm doing at the moment is to talk a lot with these people, with professionals, but also in an academic setting, and I try to kind of tell them how you can use it. And it's not about that it's going to take your job away. It's just that we have a
mm,
little bit more to do than before. There's something new coming
yeah.
around the corner, and it will help you in the future. So that's kind of where we are at the moment. It's very much in the beginning, and we are very curious and we're looking forward for the next steps in these terms.
When you talk to people and when they are responding to AI, what is the majority of people, what is the reaction, the majority of people? As you mentioned that right now they're hesitant, they explain to you why they're hesitant.
Yeah, well, it's like maybe it's twofold, so to say. Yeah. There is, I would wish a little like, deeper understanding than talking about AI. Mostly it's just, okay, I'm fascinated by the technology and I can do this and that. And it's a very fast pace and we kind of tend to go into fast food in these terms as well, quite a lot. This is like one side I can see that they're like really this like this it's the awesomeness and people are just like stunned away by what it's going to do. And on the other hand, people are, as I said, like a little hesitant because they are questioning it. They are questioning if they really want to use it, if it's the right thing to do as well a little bit. So it's a lot about the values. People are a little bit in, I say, in a deeper thinking of how to engage with it. And I think that's kind of a little bit what's lacking at the moment, that we don't have the people who actually can show to others what it could mean for them without just losing everything. So it's a lot about this like press thinking at the moment. I think I want to kind of take out a little bit this fire at some point.
Yeah, I see what you
Yeah.
mean, and I resonate with that. And of course, we're in a similar field, similar playground or battlefield, however we was that, or war zone. And yes, I agree. I think a lot of people are hesitant because A, they don't know where to start, B, if they don't know if it's the right thing, whatever that means, and C, maybe they don't
Yeah.
know what is the return, right? What do they get if they spend the time to learn it? Perhaps for
Mm.
them, it is not yet clear. When you have friends who ask you, "Oh, Simon, why are you so engaged in AI? Why do you start a company of your own focusing on AI, it's called AI agency, why?" And what do you respond to that?
Well, it's a good question. As I said before, it's the thing that happened kind of 3 years ago. A good friend of mine, we were sitting in a bar in the evenings very casually and drinking a beer, and it was Chen, and Chen was showing me on his phone basically that there is a new thing coming out, and I think it was one of the very first versions of where you could do this text to image, yeah. And I was sitting there and just typing in some text, and I was like, okay, wow, this is going to open up so much what we are challenging at the moment, and it's going to change so much as well. So I was just like falling into this whole field and never could get out again at some point. So I was fascinated, and that's what I'm just kind of forcing now further. And I said, okay, I want to also do this professionally. It could be also kind of a possibility for myself to go into design still, but in a slightly different manner with something or like a technology which is just coming very new. Yeah.
As a
I'm gonna
designer
talk about
yourself,
this. I'm
yeah,
gonna talk
sorry, go
about
ahead.
this afterwards in the presentation a bit, also
Yeah,
like what this means
I'm
like in
looking
history
forward.
terms and things. So I
Okay,
hope
fast.
to understand it. But it's like there's a lot of
Yeah,
like, okay, new things is the first thing, right? Okay,
yeah.
we're fascinated by it, but then it's also, can I actually do it myself? You know, it's like, and as I see so many people and so much engagement in this open source community that and this is great for everyone who wants to dive into this. It just is possible for you. And that's very great.
I'm looking forward to the presentation. Last question for me before we go into it. As a
Sure.
designer yourself, even before 3 years ago when you sat at the bar, you are a creative person and you enjoy design, you're a designer. How does AI in your workflow make you feel? Because now you got onto it, you became obsessed or possessed of it. You love it now. But how can you describe for us how does it actually make you feel when you design using AI now? Can you go back to without AI?
Yes and no. It's something shifting in your thinking, I guess. Like at least it's for myself, it's like this.
Yeah,
I have this one hand who or which wants still to draw things and wants to kind of search things based on what I just have in my mind. But
yeah.
then there is immediately this other voice in my head that says, let's try it out. You know how to do it, and you can do it sometimes very fast. I have to say you gain a lot of time at some point. But it gives you another level of searching things, of an ideation somehow. And I'm just also very curious what this model could bring, even when it's the same prompt or the same method or something like this. I'm just very curious about it. So it kind of goes both directions. And that's when I say, okay, it's more about the compromise. I still recognize both of these things. And I think both are on the same level. but AI has to kind of catch up a little bit because it's not there yet. Yeah. You
Mm.
really need to work on it, and it has to kind of make its own place next to very conventional design thinking. But I think eventually in a year or two, we definitely gonna have that. And that's also how I work. I do things with AI, I do things by hand, and in an
Yeah,
optimal way, I can fuse them afterwards together. So this is a lot of fun.
yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay then, Simon, please feel free to share anything you'd like to share with us. Thank you.
Yes, sure. Just a second. So I'll quickly also make sure, as always, I hope you guys can see my screen and you still hear myself.
Yes.
Also, yes, okay, perfect. So I quickly go, it's quite a little bit a journey of myself and what I'm doing and what I'm kind of investigating. But I first go quickly, what we talked already, a little bit into the AI, how maybe also just I do understand it and how do I use it. I take you afterwards directly into the teaching, into the academics, and I show you some interior design strategies I do with students at the New Design University and also at the Technical University in Vienna. Then we go as a third quickly into something which was an AI furniture design boot camp, which was done with professionals. So it's about training professionals as well. And the last step, I definitely also want to go into kind of the practices I do together with Stefan Laub at Unlocked Creatives, what we want to do there. So, as I said before, that we can go first maybe into a little bit into history. I think with the 1950s, we had this birth of AI. And yeah, this is like double my age, so to say. It's there for quite a while. And why it's very crucial to see this, so to understand for myself, was that with the year 2002, everything what we trace, everything what we use online or what we have in data is going to be stored digitally. There's nearly no analog storage there anymore. And this makes just like the point how much of importance has AI because there is so much resource there. And we had that with the 2000 within I'm a 90s kid, so I was just like kind of jumping into this whole journey of AI in the middle, basically. And I had no idea what this actually means when we store and we assemble this kind of information. Now with 2022, it's 3 years ago, basically, and when we can say this is the time of implementation. So a lot of scientists, they were waiting since the birth of AI. They're now 70, 80 years old, but they waited that this time is coming. And we have now the first time in human history, basically, the possibility to use AI or like our data. And also we have the possibility and we are allowed to use it. I think that's even more important. And what you can do with it, you see here one of the first images I was doing on my phone in 2022 and where it's going now with 2024. We have big leaps. It's very rushed. The speed is immense, how this is going forward. So talking about, okay, what I'm really amazed of is basically what you see here as a diffusion model when you have these noise gassing methods that out of nothing, based on a certain data set, which I can teach and which I can control afterwards through my own very language. I can do, or like I can communicate, I can show everything what I have in my mind, or even more. I can even go on a search. I can be very surprised about things. And this only with my own language in written structure. And this is something what you can actually learn, right? So it's possible in each language. And you can do this in a structure where it has what is more important in the very first beginning or on top of it, and it gets less important the longer your text gets. And this gives you a lot of various possibilities to communicate things through images. And we're going to see later on when we do this iteratively what this means afterwards. What it means for us in the design development, I have to say I see the biggest potential in the very first beginning phases of design. So it's really the imagining and I always have words and images already in my head when I read a brief or when I have a certain exercise I'm doing. But the imagining comes now before the actual communicating. So this visualizing comes before the planning and the drawing and the modeling. And this puts something very interesting into context, and this is that I'm going to be immediately a client of the AI. It sets me into the position that I have to curate things. It's a curation challenge what I have to face. And this changes quite a lot in terms of how I gonna work. And while it won't replace many of our works, it will change it. And that was kind of the beginning where I said, okay, this is cool that I can do all these images and this search and whatsoever. But always was very curious of like, okay, how do other people deal with this? And I started of thinking, okay, I could actually also teach this. There are no courses whatsoever, but you can see that it's growing very fast in all industries, not only design or architecture, it's everywhere basically. But no one really takes up on this. And this was like 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago. It was beginning of 2023, I think, where I started this. And I call it obviously AI-based design strategies, where I was really thinking of, okay, how can I set it up just with a few tools, not too many, because it has to be very controllable. It has to be digestible within a very short amount of time. Otherwise, it will lose its relevance. So I set up a course which was basically going over 3 days. So we would meet like 6 times, always like an afternoon. And I set it up that I say the first thing what we really have to learn or what you have to think about, which is going to help you a lot, is that now, these times, we have a very powerful assistant. It's ChatGPT, for example, which could be very, I'll say, creative on its own because it's doing a lot of like hallucinations and things, which I think is not a bad thing. But that's the thing what we have when we have an assistant like this is that we're going to lose immediately this white canvas. We're going to lose this white canvas, which is kind of giving us a blockade or which is leading us into something where we are not sure of what we are doing, or I don't have the information. Now I can assemble this information very fast. Of course, I have to make sure that it's going to be right. I have to learn how to talk with these machines and how to sort it out, how to curate. But I basically can set up a story very fast. And with this story in text, I can do also afterwards with packaging into prompt. I can go, for example, into Midjourney and I can do images, all sorts of. And with these images, all sorts of, I can basically do a synthetic archive, a synthetic data set, which I can train my own little AI model, a fine-tuned model. And this is going to be kind of the first thing I have on my right hand. This is the atmospherical checkpoint. Everything what we talk when we communicate about atmosphere, about textures, about objects, about colors, about light and shadow and perspective, I can now store. And this is something very new. We didn't do that before. And on the left hand, I still the designer from before. I do a plan. I do a 3D out of it. And I can leave it as rough it is. And afterwards, I can marry these two things together. That was the whole idea. And that's how it basically looks like. You see it afterwards as well in the results. It's always kind of these 6 images, which is first is going to be a text. Then you have a mood board, which was kind of the initial, how say, like saving point for what I had in the backbone as a story. And then with this, I go into a design element. I want to search something like innovative, something I didn't know before. So I'm searching a design element and I'm going to communicate this in an image. And then I train the AI and I'm going to marry it afterwards together into the geometry. This was one exercise. It was in Italy. This was just a space in Italy. There was 2 rooms. We did that with about 20 students, very homogeneous spaces, and they were kind of given exactly the space they could choose. And the exercise was that they have to find their own topic they're gonna put into this. And I just show you the results now. I don't go very much into details, but I think what you see in a very first place and very fast that, okay, this has a certain coherence. I can immediately say when I see stuff like this, if it's matching or not, if I have like somewhere a break in the chain. But I think like this, you see, this is a hazelnut museum. They didn't even know that they're going to do a hazelnut museum in the first place, of course. But this is the result after 3 days. They learn how to build up the whole story into this image. You see this here as well in this Giardino Segreto, which was a kind of an orange garden. And I really love like how things are just matching. You have the oranges everywhere around. It kind of matches even the people because they were putting in the location and the whole context. And that's how that's exactly how you go into this thinking of, I call this later on data guiding. And when you guide your data right, you have this kind of series, but it's going to go through your whole project. And I think we always did that. It's not something new. It's just something we sometimes forget a little bit. We always have done that. This is another project in Switzerland. We did exactly the same. And you see like how diverse this kind of series or sets or result sheets how I call it as well, are going to be. And sometimes when I see these pictures, I can remember myself directly on the text, what they were kind of writing during the sessions. But I think it's kind of successful for the students overall to kind of start thinking in the very first beginnings of their studies that every trace I leave, I can use afterwards for my work. It's not just trash, and I can make it actually usable. Yes. So it is the storytelling and the ideation in a very first place, so to say, and then it's very much about the visual communication as a first step. Yeah, these are kind of these two toolings I was now talking about, and this is basically kind of the magic what happens afterwards, that you can do all these projects visually communicated in a certain fidelity where it kind of makes sense for a client as well. And as soon as you kind of, when you store these things, these atmospherics, you see this now when it's changing the perspective, this whole style is going to be applied over again and again. So that means that I can actually move in my three-dimensional space, and I can always say, like, I can always can draw it again into this atmosphere. I think this is one of the main kind of takeaways we had after these 3 days. I see the students there, they really kind of work with it and they take it further into their studies. They try to use it sometimes even every day. It's very applicable. So when we go afterwards out of the academics, I also have always to say that it's even more important to also kind of teach the professionals that they kind of, that both of these two have to find together at some point. And we did a boot camp. It was a year ago here in Linz in Austria. We did a boot camp with about 24 professionals, where it also, of course, very much was about, okay, using ChatGPT as our dialogue partners, our assistants, and do like the first like image translation into these very profound objects in which these models are very good as well. It's here, of course, like a scale change, and that's why it looks so proper, in my opinion. It's completely different or like it's more easy for a model to kind of focus on one thing than it's just like a bunch of things. And you see also that with like building up, and I think Cars was also showing this last time in the talk, that you have to kind of build up with ChatGPT a certain instruction about prompting. And with that, you're afterwards very, very fastly able to kind of iterate designs in various directions. If it's like in a chair in Berlin or if it's a chair in Tokyo, kind of this already makes an influence about the whole image you're ideating. You can also, of course, switching a chair or like simply switching the word of a chair to a lamp or to a table, but you stay in the same language. So we start talking about like design loops and design families. And you can do this very fast. It's just like ideating it through. You can then go even deeper in a design loop when you start kind of blending things together. And that's where you have the opportunity to really search for new designs. Yeah. And it's always on yourself, on your taste, what you're searching for. But like this, you basically get like a matrix of design families and you can choose from them. So eventually this is basically what we get from various designers afterwards. You see the professionals, they're very rational, but the intention here was also that we are going to build this afterwards. So I'm pretty happy that it stayed kind of rational in a way. Another technique, so to say, is that you would do this by giving the designers the pen again, and you would film it, and you have a real-time AI enhancement to it. In this journey, we did it actually with Crea AI, and you see it's with like different layers, with different prompts. You can iterate very fastly and very intuitively a design which is coming from your hand. I think this is kind of the opposite to when I'm just working only with images. Like this, I'm just iterating real-time images into a design, and afterwards I can basically choose like out of a catalog which version of this I want to take further. When I say take further, it's for me this is not going to stop here just with an image. We are now with a novel view synthesis, we are able to basically do a full rotation of this object, and afterwards you can take this directly in three-dimensional space, basically as like an asset, a gaming asset. It even comes from the gaming industry that you can do stuff like this. And I see this now especially as a possibility to have design templates in three-dimensional space, so you can take this afterwards into like a segmentation, or like you have to really plan things out how to fabricate them. Speaking about design families, you can also see that a third method could be that you have two very diverse images and you go into search of generations about which object you want to have in the end. all of them being brought into 3D afterwards. Of course, you see that I think at the moment this is now Tripo. You can do this also with trellis or Hunyan. It really does not matter a lot. It depends a little bit if you want to have it textured or in which quality you want to have it. But this is basically what you get in a short amount of time that you can take it further in a planning program afterwards. And that's basically how we went then from the ideation into presentations. We even did a rapid prototyping with 3D printing, some prototypes. And yeah, we had really big objects. We had beds, we had sofas, we had tables, we had chairs, all these things. And they were brought to life at the beginning of the year. And we had a little exhibition as well. And you see basically here the built object, which is now, so to say, you could brand it like from AI to object within, I don't know, half a year maybe altogether. But as I said in the beginning, it's just the very first phase of the design where you can actually use the AI, right? So this was the whole group. And I think now I have to speed it up a little bit. I know it's quite a lot, but I want to go now into unlocked creatives, which I'm doing also with Stefan Laub. We were founding this now in 2025 in the beginning, and our mission is basically to explore and to develop genuinely useful and kind of visually driven high quality generative tools and services. That's what we want to do, and that's what we do, and what we're going for. And that means that it's a lot about ideation and concepts, of course, but everybody is doing this super nice and super great images, and I know they're awesome. I love them. I want to look at them. It's cool. If they're towers rising up in the sky, if they're super big wineries, I love seeing these images. But as I'm also a trained architect and in the design space for quite a while, I have to say when I see projects like this, the next feeling is like it's not about like, okay, let's go, let's do this. The thing what happens is they're gonna stay images because I'm very fearful. It's like, okay, now I don't know actually how exactly to construct this. And when I would know how to do it, it takes quite a lot of time. So the thing is, what I want to say is like you could do any image with it. And it doesn't really matter if they're like the awesome images, if they're like super futurist or classical concepts. You can also do all variants of it. You can do diagrams, mood boards, sketches, axonometrics, whatever, you name it. You name it in your language and you can reach it at some point. The thing is where I say that is this counts also for concepts. You could do it in a manner where it gets very rational. You could do it in a manner where it's about cultural sensitivity, where it's about a certain location that a trained mind from an architect can look at them and say, okay, I see certain elements coming together, or I'm searching kind of innovations, and we kind of do workflows where they're not only one step, but they go certain steps. It's based on like a sentence, but it goes in a direction where, especially like on the second image, on the bottom image, you can see that this timber, these drying racks, yeah, what you normally have in these areas, they're getting reinterpreted as soleils, yeah. And yes, I could do like 20 versions of it, but I found a way of like doing it directly with AI, and this is just a raw image directly out of the AI, where I have this whole reinterpretation as I kind of had in mind, but I didn't have in mind that it could be so easily done. That it's just this drying racks as like a net, and you even have like this whole kind of tree-like designs in front of it, and that's where I kind of allow my mind to have a journey to look a little further into concepts of concepts I could not even really figure out very much in my own mind, but when I see these things, it starts rotating, it starts working. So this is a certain sensibility we want to go on. And of course, what we always appreciate is that a certain quality to these images is there, because that really helps you to communicate it further. When you go in a little bit into bigger projects, which are, for example, these 3 towers, and that's maybe something, or like this clip is something you would show to a client. It's very big. It's like, okay, wow, is that at some point really AI? How did you do it? And that's the thing where I say to most people and also to my students, you have to be aware of sometimes this is not just an image. There's a design behind of that, something what you have modeled within an hour or two, and that's something what you want to keep. The visualization of it afterwards, it could be very good, but this does not mean that it's just one click. In fact, this one here was a multi-pass workflow which goes over 6 steps. It's combining two different state-of-the-art models together, and it does an ideation basically in an STXL. It goes into a reference image where they didn't have before, but I can do it in Flux. It's not about the tiles itself, but it's about the image quality, and then you marry them together step by step till you actually have this full image afterwards. And this is work. This is work in terms also in, okay, how to combine these workflows. And this is work as well. Okay, am I able to do this with my resources I have here? And when I don't have the resources, I can at least generate my own resources to reach that. So now we're in the middle of basically generative visualizations. And when it's just image, like text to image based, what you've seen before, we of course have controls. We have ControlNet, we have reference images, and we can even do our fine-tuned LoRa models on top of it. What this means is that we have reached the stage where we can really access data and we give data into the models to really reach a certain quality we want to communicate to our clients. And what we normally just need is this some, let's say, like clay or blank 3D, and everything else we do in steps afterwards in a generative manner. Got here a few interiors, and here also when it goes afterwards into an exterior. I think the thing what I wanted to show here is that it needs to have what's not here is that this is one room. This is very easy to do, and we see it everywhere. We see it in LinkedIn, we see it in Instagram and everywhere else. It's very cool when you do one image. It's done. It's just there. But when you have to do more than one image around an object with different perspectives, and it has to be in the same language, you really have to be focused on a certain structure. And this has to be a given at some point. This is your job when you work with these tools, that this is going to succeed. This is going to succeed also in an interior where you have a certain design language where the materials are going to be placed. It does not really matter so much about the input here, but you have to make sure that certain walls or certain materials and the whole appearance of the image as well is going in one direction. Otherwise, especially when you have a client, this is not going to be presentable at some point. Or you really have to state it, of course. Then. Same is when you have these very different views. And this is sometimes a really hard exercise to really get the same seed out, the same procedure, the same kind of prompt, but differently put into a spatial perspective. But it has to be one thing. And it's kind of funny that with such advanced tooling like AI or machine learning, that this very weird concept of, okay, we always have one object, of course, it's one design. That's the design I'm doing. We would never think that it's going to be something different when I'm just turning around the corner. But here with AI, that's the first thing what's going to happen when I just click this one button again. It's like, damn, it changed so much, I can't communicate this anymore. And it takes you quite some time to go back again and to fix that. Eventually you get the point, or like you get a certain strategy, you can do it, but it's funny how this design thinking is changing a little bit. Luckily, of course, or like what we see in this space turning to be very valuable at the moment is that we are not only having generative image models, but we have image editing models like Flux Fill or Redux, Flux Context, now Nano Banana, which is from Google. So what Phil basically is doing, and I'm not going to show you now an animation because it's going to take too long, but you can see here a few steps of like, okay, I want to have in a certain area a certain object placed. And then you can do this in a generative manner. You can even change textures. You can take things out. You can place people. And this gives you a lot of control after you generated an actual image, but it has some mistakes in there, or you want to have additional features. This is one thing you could do. And another thing, of course, is when you have here, again, something transformed into, now, this is a school, it's going to be in a summer scene, but I want to go is here, that between here and here, you have this flux context model where I say, okay, no, I want to have this image, which is here in the summer rendered. I want to have that immediately in a super stormy winter time. And that's also why this model is called context. It's about changing contextual things very fastly and very accurate. And this makes it very usable when you have the possibility to do things very controlled, but in different scales. You have to take it down away from this one button solution. You have to break it down into digestible parts, and then you are able to do step by step, pass by pass, an image you actually want to communicate what you had in mind afterwards. And you can do this in a certain quality. It's actually, which is going to please you as well. It's not only just I'm going to be surprised the whole time. Another thing which is really cool is that you can do out of one image a whole sequence, a whole rotation through a video model. As you can see here, I mean, it's a lot of surprises, of course, on the other side of this. But I think we are able to do this now since a few weeks. And as we have this like super fluent video model, the thing afterwards, what we can do out of this image, and I think this is very fascinating for us as architects as well, that we can do a 3D out of it. And we can take this as we had in the chairs with smaller objects, we can take this as like a template in a 3D and we go on from a very first stage in a competition, for example. We go further with even a 3D model. And I mean, this is just a certain state of moment at the moment. Like now it's going to be somewhere in just a year or 2 years where this is going to be high fidelity in a quality where you can segment glass away from concrete, and then it gets really usable what you're going to ideate. So in terms of like just taking this in 3D, we deal a lot also of, okay, how can I really do iterations with these designs? Here you see an example when I just only do this in text in a flux model. Everything looks a bit similar and it's always kind of digesting the whole image. I always get a completely new image. You see the context is changing all the time as the tower is changing all the time through all the 6 images. Same is basically happening when we do this in STXL. We have a little more advanced control net and we have the ability to do a reference image into. So we're going to do a normal kind of style transfer. So I'm in the middle of a search for a certain design, and even when I switch kind of my control net, I can do various facades in various styles. But what was always kind of missing a little bit is, okay, the segmenting. This like, okay, I can do an area masking. And that's basically what we are setting up at the moment, that we have this ability to be very precise in masking these things out and taking these masks even, and to transform this mask into guidings for example, in these terms, a certain facade structure. And you see that you get afterwards a whole family of this facade, which is very much controlled by a reference image. It's controlled by a control net. You can even draw it by your hand. And it's always placed exactly in the area you want to have in the beginning. And the only thing how we set it up, that you only say like, okay, you want to have the green area or you want to have the red area, and that's what it's going to get. And that's how you can iterate these facades and these designs throughout. And this you even have to combine now with custom LoRa's, which we train in a professional manner. And that's basically how we get the whole design intent into these models. And it's very fascinating kind of where this goes and how much control you actually can have by now. We do some investigations now in the Google model, and this is going to be a future thing. Models are coming and going, and you just have to kind of iterate on what you already have. And the last thing now, I think it's kind of also missing a little bit, is that what are you going to do? It's a nice flex what we do. It's like, okay, I show you all these cool things. And especially for offices where you want to do an integration, or people which are in the creative field, they always ask, okay, can I do this myself? And we had a big search and we found ViewComfy now, where we can do web apps basically. So we do basically an online version of our workflows, and afterwards you can use these workflows with your own inputs. And when you put this as an app into an office and you have like your 5 workflows and you just put your people on there, it is very easily available. And I think that's kind of the last step. We really want to make sure that as a professional, yes, we can do the services, but yes, we also can offer you kind of the possibility that you can work on your own with these things. And I think that's kind of for me kind of the rounding afterwards also, like, okay, I do the professional things, but it has to go into industries. There's so much value to it, and I want to give you this possibility as well. All right. So with this, I say thank you from Vienna. This is the Cost Church. Thanks for listening, and I hope I could show you a little like a diverse set of things I'm investigating at the moment through everything what I have in my mind currently.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. That was very valuable. And thank you so much for showing us the range of very exciting things that you have been working on in the past 2 to 3 years. Please, I would welcome everyone, the audience here, if you have questions you'd like to ask Simon, please raise them in the chat while I take the moments to ask Simon my own questions first. So you guys can take some time to formulate some questions for yourself, and I will then read out those questions in the chat box, or you can turn on your mic later if you wish. So, Simon, I find it really fascinating. First of all, you have a great quality work. We see a lot of image generations these days, and of course you may know there's a range of quality out there. There's a spectrum of quality work out there. Yours is definitely on the high end with a lot of control and sensibility. So I want to ask a little bit more about the data that you are working with right now, the data that you're controlling right now. Are you training your LoRa model each time, like a mini LoRa, every time you have, for example, 3 to 4 different angles of a building? Do you train mini LoRa and you use that mini LoRa for all 4 images? Is that what you're doing in those images that you showed us?
Actually, not every time, I have to say. I have to be very honest with that. It would make a lot of sense, of course. You do yourself a little favor when you are able to train these LoRa's. I mean, this is a broad field as well. There's a lot of theory about it, and it takes a bit of work to get a good LoRa. And not only a bit, it does take work.
Yeah,
So in these
of
terms,
course.
it's more of like fusing the possibilities you have in these workflows already. So it's about taking the same seed. It's about
Mm,
making really sure what your prompt is saying and how strong your prompt is there, what kind of model I have. So it's more about caring about the actual workflow and
yeah.
guiding it in a manner. It kind of also it makes sense for you, but it also makes sense for the model
Mm,
which has to calculate it. And this gives you already quite good results. And then I think I would do this first, and then I would decide if I would do a LoRa.
yeah, okay, I
So
got you. So it's the seed
the
key.
LoRa is not the only solution.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure, sure. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So it's the seed, the
Exactly.
reference images, the prompting, and patience.
Yes.
Got
Yes.
And the furniture workshop is fantastic. And the fact that they actually made it at the end, that's really awesome because we see a lot of
Yes.
workshop, but not all workshops actually end up with something solid where actually someone can sit on the sofa, right? That you showed us. You should definitely write a paper on that if you haven't already. I think that's pretty avant-garde.
On it.
How do you envision the next push to be? Because that's a very awesome workshop where you had the image generation and then you actually then manufactured a piece of furniture. How do you see the next step to push in that direction to make an AI become real in our world?
That's a good question. I already was super happy because I was very proud about everybody who was
Yeah,
participating
of
in
course.
this workshop, and afterwards the objects were there. And I think this is also kind of one of the highest goals as an architect or as a designer. That's the thing what I have in my mind. I can put it afterwards into the world as an actual object,
Mm,
and it's just there as well. So when you're
mm,
asking me what's going to be the next big step, maybe it's more that more people are going to be, I would say, enforced. Or like I wish that more people would just dive into and try it out. It's more about
mm.
this because so much gets possible through that, and that's it. I think that's already far enough at some point for the
Yeah,
next
of course.
1 year at
And the
least.
right, of course. And the participants that went to that workshop, they are practitioners. They're furniture designers.
They're the
Okay, got
designers
it.
and manufacturers, exactly. Yes,
I
and
see, I
they
see.
never had
Okay.
dealt with AI beforehand.
AI before.
And
Okay.
we made this workshop within like 3 days, and
Yeah.
they afterwards they just went into their manufacturing workshops and
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, so it was
And
super amazing to see that.
And the third thing you showed us, the web application that you put together. Am I correct? Did I get this right? So it's your application that you pushed out and people can see it and use it.
There's a company doing that, of course, and I'm happy also kind of maybe to promote it a little bit, of course,
Mm.
because they're doing a great job in like this conversion from Comfy UI into something someone else can use without knowing Comfy UI. This is called View Comfy, and this is basically giving you like a framework how you could do this web app. Yeah. exactly. So I'm
Got
also
it.
happy kind of that I can build something. Yeah.
So on this view Comfy, you have then put in your own workflow and it basically
Yes.
supports you in providing a UI for other people to use.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
It's
And
basically a
how
made up UI. Yeah.
got it.
Exactly.
And other people can then access it through view Comfy.
Yes, exactly. You can just invite
Fantastic.
them to your kind of,
Yeah.
I say like a board, so to say, and then exactly can you make your own recipes basically available for everyone you want to. Yeah.
And if someone in the audience wants to try out your workflow on view Comfy, how can they go for that?
We are not there yet, I have to say. There are certain limitations for now, but it's also like not something we have rolled out completely. But if someone has a certain interest, just send us a DM through LinkedIn or our website unlocked.at, and we're happy to kind of find a way together, of course. Yeah. But
If a
it's not
client
something
has
of, yeah.
got it. And if a client has a specific thing they want help from you, then this is possibly something you can do for them, like customize a workflow and then send them a view Comfy link, and then they can then actually be able to see the UI without seeing all the scripts that you have at the back, which would then confuse them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. Right, got it.
Yes, exactly. You just
Amazing.
you rationalize it down to a very just for the inputs, and then
Yeah.
there's a certain method and everything behind of that, and that's just for myself or ourselves. Yeah, exactly.
Nice. Okay, so we have some questions in the chat. One of them is, Hyman, thank you for the nice sharing. I would like to ask about the new clients who try AI renderings the first time. What is their attitude towards what they receive? What are their comments on the AI output?
And very diverse, of course. I think it's also kind of splitting a little bit apart in various generations. I think like the older like architects and designers, they're like, but what did it do now? It's like that's not what I wanted. And then they just really stare about the thing and they think about like, okay, where is the mistake? What they did? Is it their mistake? Or, and they need some certain time to kind of engage with the whole
Mm,
thing. But most of them, when they see results and they get very surprised. And sometimes I really have to say, okay, don't take it 100% for like, okay, this is now what I want to do. Start
mm,
thinking, start working with it. You're going to have this 20 times this thought what you have now. So it's really something you have to, it's like baby steps going for further and further.
yeah,
But the acceleration of these baby steps is increasing very fast. And out of a sudden they generate everyday things and they try to kind of find their language in there. And it's kind of fascinating how people are engaging with it. Yeah.
I think the emotional strength of a designer with or without AI needs to be very
Mhm.
strong. It needs to be
Yeah,
a
that's
lot.
well said. Yeah.
Needs tolerance and endurance,
100%.
that's for sure. All right, the next question here we've got. Hi, Simon, thanks for the sharing. I see a lot of examples of AI rendering from 3D model. I'm curious to know approximately what percentage of the workload is automated or handled by AI versus manual work that you may do, such as fine-tuning or correcting imperfections.
What the thing is that, of course, I'm kind of thinking a little bit of, especially for myself, that I don't have to do the things always 4 or 5 times again and again when things or like same things are coming in. So I have to think about like how can I scale it for myself in terms of workflows. So I do think in certain categories and certain, I say, challenges I want to solve with AI. And this is going to be like one workflow. And then I can kind of switch workflows in between. But basically, when I have a certain input, and it could be a photograph, it could be a hand sketch, it could be a screenshot, whatsoever, that's the thing I kind of want to have from you at some point. And everything else, and a lot of it, like I would say like 80% of that is afterwards automated. Yeah.
Amazing. We will see if there are other questions coming in the chat. In the meantime, I like to ask a question that I ask a lot of times, actually every time, which is a more of a generic question, which is if you have one word you can use to describe success, what is that for you?
Success. Oftentimes, success is valued by the others, right? I go for serenity. I think serenity
Oh,
is kind of the word. It
plenty.
ensures me, yeah, serenity. It kind of ensures confidence towards my own values, and it gives me kind of this calmness and like an emotional
Yeah.
satisfaction. That's it. Yeah.
I see you exert that actually. I can feel it also in your work. It's
That's
quite
good.
prominent. Yeah, so I think
Happy
you're
about that.
living it. I think you're living your own success. Fantastic. So, Simon, this has been such a great pleasure, and you do amazing work.
My
And
pleasure.
there's no doubt, however way the market decides to go, in whichever speed it decides to go, the direction is correct, I think. And it's a matter of time when this is going to become, the industry is going to rely on talents like yourself to be pushed forwards. I wish you all the best of luck, and thank you again for coming on to our episode. So thank you. Thanks so much.
Len, thanks as well a lot, and thanks
I really appreciate it. Have a good day.
you
Thank you so
as well.
much.
Have a good day. Goodbye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.